I'm going to call to order the July 9th meeting of the Land Use and Planning Standing Committee. We have one guest, Bastion.
Hey, Mayor Westwood, it looks like.
Hey, Mayor Westwood, I'm assuming this is all his?
Dave.
Yeah.
Minutes, ladies. Did anybody get a chance to read through them?
I didn't go back, I was hoping to get a hold of Brian, so if you want to wait to approve those minutes until next time, we can approve both of them?
We can do that.
You want to just do that? Because that way I want to make sure Brian did actually, which actual event, applications he was looking at.
Okay, we'll delay that to 7:23. Reappoint chair and secretary due to the standing committee. Reorganization. Anybody want to volunteer?
I will do chair.
Good.
Yeah,
You got it?
not a problem.
Okay.
Are you okay with the minutes?
Yeah, I can keep doing minutes. My concern with being a chair is that once school starts up again, I will be,
Well, then I'll take over your minutes at that point.
okay, 10 minutes late.
So Chelsea will be the new chair. Cynthia will continue to do the minutes until school starts. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to do it.
Yeah.
Ordinance 911 amended. You guys thought a little bit more about it?
I haven't received a copy of it.
I went,
Here's a copy of it here.
I went online and I couldn't, well, I have the one that you had sent previously.
That's the only one that I'm
Okay.
aware of.
Right, because then I went in to try to find the amended one, and then, yeah.
Or the next amended one, you mean?
Right.
The one that we were toying with?
Mm-hmm.
And
So-
I'm not sure.
I would love to now actually make notes on it, but one thing, Rod has provided this.
Which one's that one?
So this, I just handed to you guys.
Oh, fantastic, okay.
This is Missoula's, correct?
They passed it like the day before the Supreme Court
Did they?
overturned the ban of cities removing homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But it has some interesting things that I thought could be applied to just, if it's going to be considered to allow camping, just some things could be applied to the general public.
Not sure
Well, I like the definition. To pitch, erect, create, use, or occupy camp structures for the purpose of habitation.
And
I don't
the other
think,
thing was,
And then it
it
defines
couldn't,
camp
it couldn't
structure.
be occupied before 8 PM and had to be tore down by 8 AM.
Gotcha.
Which is interesting.
huh, okay.
I think the big question, though, to start with is, do you want camping to allow camping on the city streets by friends and family of,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like that, and like even down here on that section, down the second AB, camping permitted and then vehicle camping permit, like, I don't even wanna look at those.
My concept here is that we have a parking issue here in Red Lodge.
Correct.
A lot of people, most people, can't park on the city streets.
Mm-hmm.
If you introduce a camper in there, then you're gonna be parking in front of your neighbor's house.
Mm-hmm.
Your neighbor's not gonna be happy because they're gonna be parking in front of their neighbor's house.
Agreed. So,
So I'm not really fond of changing the camping on city-owned land at all. Occupied camping. It's one thing to park a camper there, then that applies to the, what is it, 3-day rule, 1 day, whatever.
Yeah, you have
Yeah,
to
you-
move it so many days.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that, it's the occupied. The problem was that I would personally prefer that if you wanna have a friend stay over in their RV, camper, whatever, or pitch tent in your own yard,
Yeah.
then that's up to you. But
Mhm.
zoning says you can't.
And that's where I think we should remove that from zoning, to where if you're on private property,
so,
yeah, like,
so to say that my kids wanted to have a sleepover and pitch a tent in my backyard, that's not permitted?
Not really.
Huh.
I think it's just campers specifically, but I mean, same deal, like I have a driveway, pretty decent sized driveway, I have a buddy who lives in his camper. He likes to come out and visit, there was one summer and I didn't realize it was illegal, but he lived in my driveway for 3 months.
Yeah.
But guess what, it didn't affect anybody's parking, he stayed in my driveway.
No.
And again, it's my private property, so I think it's great, they can camp there.
Only negative I've heard on that is what if somebody brings in an RV, puts it on their property, either hooks it up to sewer and water or power, or not, and they rent it out as an ADU.
As an ADU, it's like a long-term unit?
Well, it's not, yeah, it's not definitely an ADU.
Because it would be an
doesn't have to
auxiliary
permit.
dwelling unit, but it's not a hard structure, so I don't know how that could be classified as an ADU.
Well,
Co- correct, 'cause
ADU
it's
has
not-
to be on a foundation.
It has to be on a
Yeah,
foundation,
so-
so,
Yeah, so it wouldn't be an ADU, it'd be a camper in your yard, and if you wanna rent that out long-term, great, whoever wants to live there, that's on them. I don't see any issue with that.
With the neighbors.
that's where, like, I'm looking at a situation like where you have the driveway and you have the space,
Yeah.
but in the event that it's like parking where you're shared parking on the
Yeah, if it's in
street,
public right-of-way, I say no,
public right of way,
but if it's on private property, I say yes. Like,
Maybe,
and if they become a nuisance to the neighbors, then that's something that can be reported, but it's gotta be something that files under nuisance.
Right, and it would have to be filed, yeah, I agree.
Like, are
Like,
they
if it's a
noise
private
complaints?
property, I don't,
noise, or not handling
No,
their
like, yeah,
sewer, or
right,
not being hooked up to electricity type of thing.
yeah, and again, if they wanted to hook up to that private homeowner's electricity,
mhm,
they certainly can do that, and it's on them to pay their electric bill. Same way that if they have someone that wants to come in and use their shower, they're paying that water.
correct. Sorry, I just,
So I
So-
think that we're kind of all leaning towards not allowing overnight camping on city-owned
on,
property.
exactly,
Right
city-owned
away.
right-of-ways, no.
Yeah, yeah, city right away,
And
public
by
right away.
camping, that means occupied campers.
Right.
Correct,
But that we should direct the planning board to take a look at zoning to allow
for private,
Private campers.
camping
100%.
on
private,
private residential land.
Yep.
correct.
What do you think, Dave?
Hey, you're thinking hard on it.
I know, like, huh,
I've got council hat, planning board hat, mayor hat, Joe Bag of Donuts citizen hat.
you buy donuts?
You brought donuts?
So what do we,
That's all I took from that one, too.
what do we, I recall that we had something that addressed camping on private property.
It was the definition.
It was privately owned commercial.
That was privately owned commercial. And we did make some changes to allow it as long as they have to file a permit, they have to file a permit, and it's not them, it's their employer.
Yeah.
They're-
I'm a really
Have to be
picky
responsible.
person. I buy a piece of property, it's mine to do with what I want, so as long as I'm not disturbing my neighbors, so there's an element there.
Yes.
But if I'm gonna go in and smoke weed in my basement, I use that example because I hope everybody understands that's not an option, but but that's my right. That's,
Correct.
if that's a legal use of property, so I guess what we're defining is it a legal use or not a legal use, and what are the factors you weigh in? My only request from a mayor's hat is it needs to not be, when it comes to staff, we need to be able to apply the rules,
Mhm.
not make a decision. Checkbox A, B, C, there
Yes.
you go.
Is this on private property?
Is
Are
it
you in a right-of-way? Are you
Is there, my recollection is that it used to be that there was a limit of days is how we balanced those rights. It was like 10 days, or was it?
That was a
I'm
private.
talking about the 903 or whatever, original camping.
Is the original in there?
Well, I'm just gonna go online and jump in really quickly to City of
Okay.
Red
I
Lodge
only pulled up the 9/11.
ordinances. That number sounds right.
That's a different thing.
Yeah, I'm just reading it.
928, let me go,
I don't know anything about 928.
overnight camping within the city of Red Lodge, 911A,
Okay, so
that's the one that you're talking
yeah,
about.
we have
Right.
that. That's the first one, and then there's a one that's a second amended, or is that the amended? That's the amended, this is the second
This
amended.
is amended.
We were proposing a second.
We were proposing the second one.
Okay,
okay.
no one shall camp in temporary,
Keep giving away my copy that I don't have.
on, so, for more than 14 consecutive days on any privately owned property, that is commercially zoned.
Right.
The Red Lodge City may waive this requirement for organization with specific pre-planned events. The city may also set costs for considering the waiver and use of city-owned land. Is this as simple as just striking? Oh,
Mhm.
well,
Mm,
no, because you wanted to allow it.
Mhm.
mhm. So, I think,
So any privately owned property is limited to 14 days. Is the exception commercially zoned land? I don't know what they were going for.
Yeah, I think any privately owned property should be allowed to,
right, why is the 14,
Well, I'm your neighbor.
Okay.
I can be patient and deal with it for 14 days, but don't make me
Yeah, this is
look at your
private.
camper in your backyard all summer long. I'm just playing devil's advocate,
yeah, but it's my backyard.
I bought this backyard.
but it's now impacting my use of ability to enjoy my private property.
And how's that?
How's it,
And now I'm gonna put up a bigger camper that you have to stare at.
Okay.
Or I'm gonna put a big ugly sign, you see where I don't wanna
I see where we're
go?
going, I see where we're going.
That being said, what do you think the argument is for somebody saying that it is a nuisance having my neighbor's camper in their driveway versus it being on the right of way? Well, or we'll even leave the right of way out. What is the nuisance? What is the argument for that neighbor
you don't like
saying,
the
I don't
look
like to look at that
Eyesore,
camper?
noise,
And that's it. Is it a noise? Because now that is something that you can issue.
right.
That is something that can get that stopped. Again, if it's not creating nuisance, then there's no reason, because again, you could paint your house bright yellow and I hate it.
like the purple one over here?
At the end of the day, you can't control your neighbors.
And let's
Mhm.
take it out of the camper. I've got a neighbor up the way that set up a teepee in his backyard. That's kind of a Red Lodge thing to do.
That's
Yeah.
camping,
Mm-hmm.
that's camping.
It's a tent, whether he's sleeping in it or not.
Yeah. He lights it up at night and I get to see it as a beacon in my backyard. I like it, honestly, like, but I could see how that would be a nuisance to someone up the street from me, where it's like, I like my night skies, and now there's a big lit up tent at the top of the hill.
Teepee.
Teepee.
Technically, it's a lodge.
Does it have a foundation? Now it's an ADU.
No, it does not.
Again, like, back to, is it causing,
How is it impacting the neighbors? I mean, that's what zoning's all about.
right, and so my thing is, let's take it back again to the zoning, like, one, back to my kids putting the tent up to sleep in it, you know, all summer, 'cause they're weird, I don't know,
Because I want
Yeah,
to
That's
talk
what
about
did when we were kids, yeah.
'cause they're kids, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't understand how, I don't know.
how that cannot be allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how can that not be allowed?
Again, if it's a noise issue, if it's a sanitation issue,
What else did we say? Noise, they have to abide by all health and safety regs. What did we say? Parking, security, sanitation. Noise. The
Yeah.
noise ordinance, but let's be honest, I don't know if that's even enforceable anymore.
So
is it gonna
basically-
negatively impact the infrastructure of Red Lodge in some way? We're not, no Uncle Eddie's dumping their sewer down the storm drain, like, that's not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my grandma wants to bring her camper and park it in the thing, and she wants to go get it cleared out at Town Pump.
All right.
Okay, this ordinance, the definition of it is an ordinance to amend, clarify, and revise the Red Lodge stopping, parking, and use of city-owned lands, including dedicated parks and rights-of-way for overnight camping. So this is strictly, it says, for overnight camping on city-owned land.
Mm-hmm.
Yet right away, you know, we go right into, privately owned commercial property. So now I'm a little
Is this
confused.
911 you're looking at?
Well, I'm looking at, 911,
Amended or 9/11?
or the First Amendment.
Oh, okay.
So I'm looking at the first amended. the part that I don't get is the part that says privately owned property that is commercially zoned,
Yeah.
to me, has to be something that somebody I
Well,
just don't.
the only example we have
But
is
let's,
the
so let's,
Alpine Lodge.
but is this this doesn't say talk about the ordinance to amend, clarify, and revise the Red Lodge stopping, parking, and use of city-owned land. So if that's what the title is,
This
this,
doesn't belong here.
the title and the ordinance
Mhm.
don't match for starters.
Yep.
That's a problem that needs to be addressed. Who's taking notes to make sure this stuff gets addressed?
Okay,
Syntax.
I got you.
Okay, title and ordinance don't match. So, is the problem that you need an ordinance that actually confirms and clarifies parking and use of city-owned lands, including dedicated parts and right-of-ways for overnight camping? That sounds like a valid topic.
Yep, dedicated parks.
Then there's a second topic that is camping, an ordinance to define private camping.
On commercial or residential land.
Camping on privately owned land.
Yeah,
That's period.
then we can define both.
Yeah.
So is that you've wanted to have different rules so we can actually allow for someone to have campers for a business on
Mhm.
commercially owned, that can be something that could last for 6 months. If you only want someone to camp in their driveway for 2 weeks, then we can make that definition different. That, you can
Mhm.
do that both within the same ordinance.
So,
But it's
so
private.
the Supreme Court has told us that we can say there is no camping in the public right of way.
We saw.
That has
Mhm.
been clarified.
Yeah.
Now, there was discussion amongst council if that's something they wanted to do, and the one thing that I thought that sounded good in that was if it was a permitted activity.
Right.
That
Such
gives you
as-
a sense of control over it, and whether you're having so you're not stopping and parking in front of it required a local sponsor, or, who are you gonna call if there's a problem or a complaint, or,
Mhm.
but I've also heard, and there's wisdom in just, we're not gonna allow it in public right of way.
I mean, if again, what is the concern here? Is it actually parking? Because that's what I keep hearing, is that we're worried about parking in the public right of way. And so, to me, that says, no, we should not allow camping. But I'm also one of those folks that I personally don't mind if someone sleeps in the van by Lions Park. That doesn't bug me one bit, and especially if they come into the city and get a permit, and now we know
No,
they're
but
self-contained.
it's not one.
It'll be,
It'll be lined up all the way
as soon as
around the
you
park
open it for one, it'll be,
for everyone.
Now, what if you're talking about public right of way adjacent to a park, as opposed to parking houses?
I think that's a slippery slope. 'Cause it's not just one van, it's gonna be all of them.
Potentially, but they're also gonna disperse, but this is where his
But
ordinance.
this is where the
What's
8 a.m. to
negative
8
to
p.m.
having people in town?
To having, well.
What's the
Oh,
negative?
how
How
long
long are they parked by the park?
There comes a point
And
when
that's where
you
we have
negatively,
parking for the park.
so then we limit, like, again, the
So
8 to,
8
the 8 to 8 rule.
And then it's, a 2-day maximum.
So 8
I'm
p.m.
a 90-year-old lady.
Mhm.
I'm no longer comfortable going outside of my house and walking by a camper that I have no idea who is there. This walk that I go on every evening, suddenly there's a camper parked out in front or along my way. And I will tell you, I have heard that conversation from a half a dozen different little old ladies.
Or a parent,
And I hear it even at the golf course.
What if
Somebody
it's at the dog
comes
park?
over and yelling at them with a club in their hand.
Yeah, it's scary. What if it's at the dog park and it's all lined up with campers so that people can't even park to bring their dog into the dog park?
Well, if it's between 8 and 8, I think that's really reasonable.
Well, didn't you guys, and is this the one that did, you guys had one proposed in previous council
This is,
that
was a sign up and go pay your own, but that's right of way.
yeah.
Or
it
technically,
needs to be
that's,
broken out.
that's even a park that's its dedicated purpose in life. But now my only concern is you're competing against KOA, you're competing against,
Perry.
There's not really a
Perry's.
competition, though. I mean, it's an
Yeah.
overflow, like,
Yeah.
and, I mean, Perry's, you're allowed to pay and stay
For as long as
for as long as you want, whereas these other places are, we have limitations, like, hey, we couldn't find a campground.
And
You
you
know,
don't have a connection, or you don't have, now, the
No, we're not
fairgrounds
there's no
has
hookup.
4 or 5.
But that's,
I mean, that's always something that I think personally would be brilliant, is to up there by the rodeo grounds, that whole section before the dog park, actually start putting in hookups, start making some city revenue, have a host, have a
You
volunteer
have to
host.
go through subdivision, you have to go to the state. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not saying we do it tomorrow.
No, and the fair has that, FYI.
Perfect.
The rodeo association has those spots.
yeah.
It does that.
Rodeo or the fair.
The rodeo
It's
has
privately
some.
owned,
It's
commercial property.
And again, so then why are we telling them how many limits they can do that on their private? This is trying to do too many things in one ordinance, so that's
It's trying to
great.
do too many things.
So you've broken down what the 2 or 3 are.
Okay, so one needs to be, we need to address the title, and then we also need to address the.
Well, we need to
permit.
shorten
Yeah.
9/11 to only address city-owned land.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
Okay.
Then we need to write another ordinance, which is camping on privately owned land, whether it's commercial or residential. Do we need to break that out, that commercial should be treated differently than residential?
I think it should.
Yeah, commercial
Why?
versus,
The big reason is one that you made the argument for the other day, is to be able to provide workforce housing. And I like that concept. So this is a way to preserve that.
So the 14-day is a limit on private, but it doesn't apply if you're commercially zoned.
Yeah, if it's
Yeah,
commercial.
That at least I follow the logic of.
Yeah.
Except that it's your private property, why do you have to restrict it to 14 days?
Public courtesy, I mean, personally, to me, I think you shouldn't have to, but at the same time,
If we didn't restrict camping on private property,
Mhm.
what's the downside?
I don't see any.
I don't see any. I'm still
Besides,
shocked.
there's gonna be a couple people that are
I'm just
annoying.
enforcement, don't look at me.
Well, and that's the thing, like, annoyance,
You get to voice.
Yeah, annoyance versus nuisance are two very different things to me. Again, I think it's obnoxious if someone painted their house blue, and I don't like that color.
it's annoying, but
It's
it's,
annoying, but I get a look at it, and that's their choice. But a nuisance, like, it's becoming a hazard, it's
For health and safety.
for health and safety.
it's infringing on your own right.
Yep.
And, yeah.
I like your capture of those 2 terms, and I would include that somewhere in your notes, that you're gonna be talking about,
Nuisance versus.
yeah, that
Annoyance.
we're
Annoyance.
protecting it as a public nuisance, and even if it's just in the discussion, there's a distinction, not annoyance.
Yep.
This is America, you have the right to be annoyed by anything you wanna be.
Yep.
Everything annoys me, so it's no big deal.
Like the guy that used to hang his trash can in the tree.
Right.
Or some people thought that was annoying.
Or again, like, I live across the street from Majerus, super nice guy, but
Oh
he's
my
got
God.
lots of cars. And like, trying to walk down his, like, his sidewalk is damn near impossible, but you know what? That's his choice, like,
He occupies a lot of public right of way.
he does.
He does.
Right away.
Should we make him move him every 14 days?
Right, but again, it's one of those things where it's
I
like,
think it's actually 5 days is what's on the ordinance.
Is it 5 days?
But just for the record, I think every one of them moves every 5 days.
Yeah, he drives
drives
them a lot.
He does
Yeah.
move.
and he's got a lot of people coming in and out, moving on, like, yeah, I have no issue with it. Again, slightly annoyed, maybe, he might be slightly annoyed that we had the most ugly fence for 4 years, like, but we were working on it, it's not like I can build it just to make my neighbor happy.
Right.
So the commercial owned, which we're not gonna define, except because it's privately owned. So that means that the Alpine Lodge can have campers there 4 months, 6 months, whatever.
Whatever we decide to write into that, if it's for
Not
employee
limited
housing,
at all,
which is how you have that originally phrased.
or not limited.
Yeah. And
So
I'm,
that's
You
private,
guys remember,
all in commercial.
may I offer a suggestion? Everybody here has, I am pretty sure, if not, I could chase it down. I wrote a list of questions that I went through when I was on council with every ordinance that came up.
don't have that.
I don't have
What
that.
is the problem we're trying to solve?
Oh,
Does this
yeah,
solve
yeah,
it? Is it legal? Does this solve it? What are the unintended consequences? What happens if we do nothing?
Yeah.
To me, what I would do is start with we have 2 issues.
Yep.
We have camping in the public right of way.
Hmm.
We have camping on private property.
Mhm.
And I would sit down and go through that questionnaire. And then come back and pick it up from there.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents.
I think that's fine. But again, I think we're all pretty close on it, and it's just
I do
good to be able
too.
to
I think
flesh
we're-
that out to where, again, you can tell that story of this is why this was decided, this is why that decision was made.
I put follow mayor's guidelines.
Dave's guidelines. I was nobody at that time.
Oh, okay,
Can you resend those to me?
I can.
Thank
And-
yeah, you might just want to send them to all of us.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I have this on my computer, so the second amended, I'm gonna take out all of the privately owned stuff.
Yeah,
And can you send that to
And
me
clean that up.
too, like
Yeah.
a digital?
Yeah,
okay, so that's the one that I have here, because this is the one where you put in, whereas the city recognizes the need for seasonal workforce housing, correct?
yeah, it's
Okay.
on the top, it says second amended.
Yep,
So that was our draft of the second amendment.
okay, so this is the
So
draft.
we'll change that, we'll stick with the title, but change it only, really, now, do we want to say, no person shall camp in or occupy the temporary sleeping area, any vehicle or temporary structure, including but not limited to, blah, 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 including but not limited to streets, avenues, alleys, and da, 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 unless a special permit, did we want to make that a permit?
I think that's what we should have the bigger conversation on after breaking it down.
Yeah, so
Is
let's
that
focus
something
on
that
the,
we actually want to open that can of worms?
Well, the can of worms is all the tents that go up over at the field for the bicycle group.
but that's, again, that's a permitted activity.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, if you get a permit for those types of functions, that it's allowed at that
To
point.
use, and that,
Now we just have to
like,
figure out
that's
what
an
that
activity
criteria is.
Unless permitted activity,
And I don't think you can have to say activity, I think you can just say unless permitted, and then you can break down the criteria of what that application
that's a
looks like.
different application.
yeah, because that's
Unless-
conjunction with an
Keep
event.
this to where you
Unless
can change
permitted by
that
the city of
easier.
Red Lodge.
Yes,
Yeah, and
Yep.
isn't yeah, because it's in relation to the event, like,
Yeah.
it's not just,
It's part of the event deal.
and then if you ever did want to expand on it and say, you know what, we do want to allow it at Coal Miners Park or at the dog park, but only during X amount of days, like, then you have that changed in your application, and you don't have to change the whole ordinance.
Exactly, because the ordinances are much more difficult to change. Okay, and then we'll do another one for camping on privately owned land.
Yep.
And that one just won't have any, restrictions.
I personally don't think we should have any restrictions on it, as
On
long as it's
privately
not a
owned.
nuisance.
again, that's where I put nuisance versus annoyance.
I'm gonna send this out, but just really quick, what is the problem to be solved?
Mhm.
Does the proposed action actually address the identified problem? What are other mechanisms available to solve the problem? So you talk about like noise or some of, Uncle Eddie. What is the main argument in favor of the action? What is the main argument opposed to the action? Is it enforceable? What are the potential financial implications, positive and negative? What are the potential unforeseen consequences of taking the proposed action? Does it scale well, AKA what precedence is being set?
Mm-hmm.
Does it create any exposure or liability for the city? What is the potential impact if no action is taken? And then I just started out, I always start by defining success. So like what does success look like? Success looks like people will be able to camp in their backyards, but in such a way that doesn't bug the neighbors or that doesn't unduly whatever, start out with defining what success is.
Success is that we don't have campers on the street with electrical cords.
So, you see what I'm saying? So that's,
Yeah.
and that's, you guys can do that. This is what I did when I was on council.
Okay. Okay, have we, beat this up enough?
Tear it down, bring it back up.
Bring it up,
Okay.
tear it down, we'll probably do it a couple more times.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Ordinance 960, use of city-owned land.
So I was gonna have something for that I didn't get from Danae. I don't know, I think you guys may or may not have seen it. The short version is, for the small event, there's 90% of the information that's collected that probably really isn't relevant.
Okay.
I'm gonna have a picnic at the gazebo, and I want to reserve the gazebo. Do I have to go get everybody's signatures? Do I have to, blah, 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 blah?
Yeah.
And so what they did is they turned it down to a single page.
Good.
And then part of the question is, does it require action from council to put it in place?
And and I apologize, I let Brian and
Okay.
both get out of here before I got a hard copy of it. But we'll put, it basically, they've condensed it down to a single page. I know Jody has looked at it, and I know several other I thought several other folks had, I
And it
just,
says trash and alcohol consumption.
I can't speak to that. But I think the answer is, we'd like to get council's blessing, even, because I think it was set by a resolution, it's not even an ordinance. But there, it talks, the resolution sets the fees for large versus small, but the number we're getting is 10 times what we've seen historically. At
As
least,
far
That's what you
as
said,
far
that
as
we were gonna get a
small
lot of requests.
events.
small events.
Okay.
And there's a calendar that's online, and basically if somebody else got there first, the answer is no.
I mean, I refer people to it all the time, because we don't do events in any of our rentals. So if they wanna have a family reunion, that's where they get to go, is public right of way, or finding
Pick a
a
park.
location in town, that they can book a back room.
Do we need to do some changes to ordinance 960? An ordinance of the City of Red Lodge to repeal and replace ordinance 928A first amended. And
Okay,
the
wait, whoa,
municipal-
let's-
And the municipal code pertaining to event permits and regulations for the use of city-owned property as governed in Title 8, Chapter 8.
I think the question is the question, but I think that I failed to get you the information you need to take any further
Okay,
discussion
so-
tonight.
Okay. Well.
I don't know that that was mine, but we'll blame it on me, because then we can move on.
Oh, I love that. The only.
Cranking right on through.
Or the other thing that we're on here, that we haven't had a chance to ever get to, is the MOUs, to review the MOUs.
Did you guys go through all of those?
We've never gone through any of them. We've never gotten that far on the list. Do we want to,
Well, didn't you have a printout of all from
I
like
do.
2017?
I have all of the MOUs.
Oh, there's
Well, she's
agreement books
got-
that thick.
Well, I only went back, yeah, some of these just aren't, and that's page by page, yeah. I have a lot of them.
So what is the current MOU guideline? That an MOU lasts for 5 years?
Well, some of these do not have back dates, and that was kind of the issue. That they just continue until they don't.
Oh,
Now, this
we don't
one
know.
for Rotary Park is the term is 5 years, and you may extend by a signed contract.
No signed contract?
Apparently not. The parties may extend this MOU by a duly approved and signed written agreement. By a written agreement, is that an MOU?
I mean, it could honestly be like an amendment.
Mm-hmm.
To this?
Mm-hmm.
So that one does have that. This one is,
Did it say when you can
What
extend it?
was the origination on that?
origination was 2016, April 26th.
So it's good for 5 years.
So it was over in 2021.
Okay.
So
And I
you're
haven't,
you're almost doubled over.
yeah.
Assuming that that there's not a newer copy of it in there.
Well,
There may be.
when it says written agreement, to me, it should just be a new MOU. Don't you think that a written agreement?
On the one for Pride Park, it was basically a reprint and a re-sign, but it's,
And that makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the recent one, right?
that was the one that we discovered hadn't been executed, or was executed but never authorized to be
Yep.
executed.
Yep.
Right. Right.
And that was my recollection when I was on council, how we did them, is they just reprint. I do remember at one point in time, the city planner at that time, James, had made a comment that he was working to get rid of MOUs. However, whenever I have raised that question and asked about the logic behind it at any of the MMIA stuff, I've been met with blank the other day, like, no, you do them, but they sunset, they're not perpetual. In other words, there's perpetual until terminated, that's not the recommendation.
Hmm.
I seem to recall, 5 years is the number that I most commonly hear, but I remember hearing somebody saying that they were doing shorter ones. To me, there's an administrative overhead, and what's the point?
Right. When I've always heard the 5
I would say that's
years,
probably legal input, is five is what I'm used to hearing.
same.
Yeah.
But even then, the continual, or like you say, the perpetual, I feel like,
The other thing to take into account, particularly as it applies to land use, is most of these MOUs have a reciprocal arrangement that's mutually beneficial. I'll use Pride Park as the example since that one came up most recently. What Pride Park has is we will take care of it, and in return, we will use it and not pay you city land use when we do it, and we notify you when we're going to. Same with Rotary. We will notify you when we're going to. It's not an ask permission, they notify. Now, what we haven't talked about is what happens if they notify us and somebody else has already reserved it prior to that point in time.
That's why I had suggested that if
the
if
grand
the
calendar.
park or whatever has an MOU active, before approving an event there, whoever's running the MOU should be notified. It should be double checked with the group.
So you're saying part of the land use permit is reach out to the holder of the MOU before approving the event?
That's what I think should happen.
How long do I wait before I don't hear back from them before I make a decision?
24 hours.
That seems a little short, but.
I think it's.
Rod, did you have a suggestion?
Why don't you, because most organizations have an event calendar for the year. So why would you not just say that they have to inform the city of
There.
any events for the calendar year that they're
Yeah.
reserving it for?
I think,
And if they don't, by a certain time, by this date, you have to notify us of your scheduled
Mm-hmm.
events. And after that, it's open for the general public. It puts, instead of the city having to constantly call.
Well,
yeah.
for
wasn't that the
permission, it
idea, was
puts
to
it back
have,
on the others.
or you said Brian has a calendar.
We have a calendar, and we're doing what we can to, I think actually there's still a discussion about, A, can we technically make it available, and B, is that the right action to make it available? Because does Billy Joe Jim Bob need his reservation for a wedding announcement publicly accessible to the world?
I mean, you don't necessarily have to say what the event is, like, you can make a calendar public without showing what the details are.
Yeah, well.
And then
that's-
it just
we
shows
need
the
to-
block.
A name
We need
that's
to
taken
look
up.
at that to see what a regular calendar versus our online format.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So again, if you're doing it just even like in a Google Calendar, you can restrict what is available for viewing.
But going back to the question from the audience is, I mean, the MOU could include language that, my concern right now is it just says they'll tell us, and I think the main
That's-
point is that there's not a fee, so they're able to use it free of charge. But I think their scheduling
They should have to do
is
it
the same as everybody else's.
Mhm.
I agree.
And if they have an event calendar, that means they can get it all in at the first of the year and decrease the likelihood that somebody's gonna be there.
Or,
But if they forget to mention it until Friday afternoon,
And it's
is
not
it available? Then yes, if it's not, I'm sorry, somebody beat you to it.
You were too late.
100%.
Agreed.
I mean, like in our world, in STR world, that's how we work with our owners, is we maintain the calendar, they can put in as many blocks as they want to save their space, they get to use the space for free, but they do not get to remove someone else who's already booked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it should work the same way for our parks, and again, then it puts the responsibility on the folks with the MOUs.
To get in there,
Yeah, and that's it, it's like, you guys can use it for free as much as you want.
right.
But you have to get your
Dates in
blocks in
first.
there. And you can send them out as early as you'd like. If you wanna always reserve the 4th of July forever and continuous,
Now, here's this, I'm not disagreeing with any of it from an administrative part. Here's the tricky part is,
we need to draft what that language looks like that's going in, because it doesn't retroactively apply to things already in place. I think in common practice, that's kind of what's happening, so I think we're probably okay. But what I think is maybe the action for this body here is, as you renew and revisit MOUs, they shall address the following issues. Here's the standards that you're setting. They're gonna be 5 years. They can be renewed if there's dollar amounts. Let's take the horse property that's on the sewer drainage bill. It needs to be put out for bid at the end of each 5-year project. By the way, that one's still out there. I've requested for the listing so we can post that, because I don't wanna wait until February or next year to do it. The problem is, we've got to figure out what the accurate description of the property is without being dependent on the person who's the most likely bidder on it's going to be. That just doesn't pass the smell test, no pun intended. But that to me, I think, is what you guys think. When thou writest MOUs, thou shalt apply the following guidelines and rules.
So what I have in the notes for MOUs, full conversation. Need to review all the MOUs on file. Essentially create a spreadsheet that has flags of what is needed for these MOUs. Are they
already out of date?
Are they out of date? Are
signatures?
Are we missing signatures? And just essentially create that work order of like, this is all the stuff that needs to be updated. Then also having a criteria and a template for these MOUs with required criteria moving forward, creating a calendar for each space with use of blocks that can, again, and teaching these folks how they need to do that, and then creating a calendar for each of these MOUs with an expiration, so 1 month prior to expiring, someone's getting a notification saying that we need to readdress this MOU.
Okay.
Those are the things that I'm taking away from this. Does that sound about right?
Within 1 month of
Well, what
I think
she's
within
saying
a
is
month.
that we automate some sort of an alert system so that we know it's about to expire,
This MOU
as
expires August.
opposed to,
9th.
oh, look, this one expired 3 years
Yep.
ago and nobody noticed.
Because, I mean, that's the thing, if you review all these MOUs on file and build yourself a real pretty Excel sheet, get all these things up to date, you put an expiration sheet, you can still have that format, but unless you're looking at that all the time, you're not gonna
No
know
one's
which ones
gonna
are
know.
expiring.
Do you
So,
know
but
when
it's
Lions
really see-
Park expired? April 1993.
Now, but if you go through it, does it say automatically renews every 5 years?
It says the MOU between the city and the Lions Club dated April 1993 is terminated.
Get out of our parks.
So that might be the old
I'm
MOU.
assuming there should be a
That's
new.
the old MOU, so they're terminating that one. This one was dated April 26, 2016, but I don't see a termination date.
And-
It has all of the things that they will do.
What happened between 93 and 2016, do they not?
So they terminated the old one, which should have had an automatic termination date. And then this one doesn't seem to have any. The term of this MOU is for 4 years. So this terminated 4 years ago. Because it was, the term of this MOU is for 4 years commencing on the date of approval by both parties. The parties may extend this MOU by a duly approved and signed written agreement. I'm having trouble with that.
I'm assuming that that's just considered the new MOU. Like,
What's
same,
that signed agreement?
yeah, the same,
But
So
if
I think
we
in your
don't have a
element
record of it.
of here's what we'd like to see MOUs,
mhm,
that it states it shall be replaced by a new MOU is maybe different verbiage.
yeah.
Yeah.
And while I think that there's some standard blocks that you wanna look at,
Mhm.
I think be careful to allow for flexibility, because certain things like the soccer field,
Mhm.
Oh, there's a
or
lot of flexibility.
there's some things, I make sure there's some flexibility to the
Oh,
specific
sure.
event and nature of the
Yeah,
space.
Now, this one, I
Well-
don't think should be an MOU. You'll have to tell me what you think. Memorandum of Understanding regarding mutual assistance. And it's all the whereases, whereas the safety and well-being of all law enforcement officers in Carbon County is the highest priority and concern for both.
Oh, is that the MOU for between the
Mutual
county
assistance.
and the
Yeah,
city police?
and
Oh.
why that should be an MOU, I'm a little confused with that. But it says memorandum of understanding.
So that's you could call it an interlocal agreement or an
Mhm.
interlocal agency agreement or something like that.
I think it
So-
should be listed
Or is
under
it,
agreement.
is it an interlocal MOU, right? Because there's gonna be something very similar on the airport. There's a county, there's Bridger, there's Red Lodge.
And
That's it.
everyone comes to an agreement.
And
So that should be more of an
a date on
interlocal.
this, as there shouldn't be. I don't think there should be a date, although there should be some way to terminate this.
Okay,
But
and
that's an agreement, not an MOU,
I track that logic.
okay?
So that one should be more of an interlocal than.
It
And so
has-
that kind of, that maybe that's part of the criteria that dictates whether it's X or Y is based on, is it a perpetual thing or is it
Yeah.
a renewing? Looking at the clock, it's 10 minutes too, so
Yeah,
be.
Perpetual versus.
I'm gonna double check the Double Ditch Park, Red Lodge Double Ditch Dog Park
Dog park.
users. That's funny. This MOU is between the users of the park and the city of Red Lodge. Wouldn't all the users have to sign?
Well, I'm sorry, what's the first one? Oh, dog park?
It says memorandum of understanding between the city of Red Lodge and Red Lodge Double Ditch Dog Park users.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
And, it's out of date as well. It did say that the term is for 5 years, starting in 2016. You can see that our MOUs are really not
Well
good.
maintained?
So well maintained. It's
I don't
amazing.
think maintenance is the term.
So
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 here's,
that's kind of.
where are all the MOUs current, like it?
oh,
In a
there-
book.
yeah, so, but, so let's go back, and I hesitate to do this. Really, I do. But here's my thinking. This going through and reviewing all the MOUs, don't get me wrong, if council wants to take on the responsibility, blah, 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 blah,
Not us, yeah.
but my feeling is, that's a staff job. What you guys do is create the checklist, review them, we need to make sure if they're out of date, if they, put the guidelines of what an MOU should look like, what an interlocal agreement should look like. And then we assign some staff person, even if I hire a temporary staff person to come in and say, come do job X, and go through and review these and tell us what our fix needs to be.
Yep.
To me, that's if I'm on council, if I'm the legislative body, I would like a better understanding of the MOU, specifically X, Y, Z,
Mhm.
blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. Go
And
make this happen.
I went back to
Okay.
2006, is what I did. The problem is the books that contain the MOUs contain contracts, agreements, leases, and MOUs. It's not like there's a book for each, which would be extremely handy.
Or it'd be
Well,
even
it's-
better
it's
if there was
pro-
an
it's-
online file that was.
Right, I was
So-
gonna say,
Well, this-
or we can
Well,
welcome
but
the
even
new
if they're
century.
scanned, they're not necessarily, and they go back long
Oh, yeah.
before.
But again, having
Well,
like,
that's why I didn't go back
Yeah.
to. far.
also redundancy is crucial. So,
Okay.
so to me, MOUs in the books, agreements, leases, et cetera,
Mhm.
get scanned in, put into a file, has
And-
very clear criteria of how that is labeled moving forward.
Mhm.
So that way, whenever we need to pull it,
And it
We
is,
pull it.
and PDFs are available for everything that's been
Okay.
recent. However, and I can go back, like, when we go to pull and we can't find, I can tell whether it got stuck in first or afterwards by looking at the PDF and seeing if there's punch holes
yep,
in the printout of the
True.
PDF that's there, sort of a thing.
So, is this something that the city council should direct the mayor to direct the staff?
I think it is something that is to say, here's the criteria, we are uncomfortable with the state of things,
mhm,
here's the criteria we'd like to have reviewed, mayor, please make it so.
yep, so I think. we agree.
I think that's appropriate.
And I think that we need to have a clear definition of an MOU versus an agreement or interlocal agreement that involves.
And I think the city attorney has a role in that conversation,
Yep.
but I certainly think that what you guys have identified is some good starting points in conversations.
Well, there's even, MOUs for Energy Corps, AmeriCorps program.
Mhm.
There's, we know that Hero Steam Center.
Mhm.
Okay, there's another meeting that starts in 5 minutes, so
Okay.
draw a line in your sand.
Okay, got it.
Pick it up. Who is not in the next meeting that would like to volunteer to sign a bunch of claims?
Not it, I'm in the next meeting.
In the next meeting.
I guess it's me, darling.
Thank you for volunteering.
Yeah.
We do
And
have
then-
some
and
folks
then
in the
give
room,
them
did you
one.
guys have
Did you guys have any?
any comments, questions, just curious about what's going
Curious?
on?
Just checking that out.
Just like, hey, I think there's AC in that room, like.
There is not, just for the record.
It looks really cool in there, so.
Could we have names
Name.
for our,
For a record.
minutes?
We gotta have those.
Absolutely. Reed Johansson.
I got a Reed Johansson.
You guys are just ready for the next meeting, you're off the hook.
Colin Courtner. Courtner.
And then Maria Krausman.
Ooh, Maria
Krausman.
A-R-U-S.
K-R-U,
K-R-A-U-S.
T-R-A-U-S.
M-A-N-N.
Okay, I have like Johansson, Carter, I got those.
You did those fine, huh?
Yeah, and Rod, I got you.
Yeah, we got your Rod.
Sweet. Okay,
Okay.
now to make sense of said note.
We gotta go.
Are you guys with,
An organization?
are you with,
You are? Yeah, I have to be here for Montana Conservation Corps.
okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was going with.
But they were along for the ride.
You just drugged them because,
Yeah.
Two of them came for fun, one of you was obligated.
Yeah, I wanted to a little bit, yeah.
all right,
You came for fun, good to see you.
cool, awesome.
Thanks for coming by.
Thanks, sorry to, I mean, he's totally big.
Online comments, did the online
I'm gonna hereby
Hunter 94? Any comments?
concerns before we close out the meeting.
No concerns.
Well, thank you for
All right.
attending.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay,
There's a new one starting, but it'll be a different meeting.
Okay, well,
Who are we
I'm
missing?
gonna officially end my duties as chair and go ahead and
push the button.
push the button. The meeting is over.